Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. Got an announcement that I'm going to start off with here. Spring has sprung, and I am busier than a one-armed paper hanger with everything that I've got to do. But I love bringing y'all the news. I appreciate all of my listeners and welcoming you into my home channel every day with the news. But I'll tell you what, this news thing has about worked me half to death. Yeah, 3, 4, 5 shows a day, 8 recorded since I started this whole thing up back last June. It's getting a little time consuming, you might say, because I have to wade through all these articles, through them to see which ones I'm going to bring to you and which ones I'm going to cut out, and still bringing you about 50 articles a day. I can't do that and get anything done anymore. And I've got a lot of things that I have got to get accomplished here. So, with that said, what I have decided to do is I'm going to bring you one show a day. It's going to be probably about an hour long. I'm going to do a dozen articles. I'm going to pick the top hot topics for you on what's going on. And the rest of it, you'll have to root out for yourself if you want any other information. I will continue to put the URLs in the description of the video so that you can look these things up if you want to, check anything out. There's lots more news out there to be had, even over top of what I've been bringing you. So, don't just rest on your laurels. Be sure and check out a lot of these other news outlets because I can't do it all. I'm just one individual out here. So topics, um, record these probably the evening before and put them up the first thing in the morning, early in the wee hours, and that way you have the news. Dozen of them today, and all these URLs are in the description of the video so you can check them out. The first one here is off of dailymail.co.uk. Korea says it's ready to sink the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson with a as it joins Japanese destroyers in Western Pacific Ocean. We can get the hamster to cooperate with us in a little bit. He's resting on his laurels here today. He needs fired is what he needs. I've been threatening him. Going to replace him with the Easter Bunny or something. Oh, hey, he just doesn't seem to want to get with the program. But tell you what I've got as it comes up on the screen. It says USS, well, and he slings the whole thing up here. I think the Easter Bunny kicked the hamster. Lord have mercy. But come on now. This one, I think it seems to be the ones that's got some video in them that make this hamster, and he doesn't want to cooperate with me when they have the that's what I'm guessing here. The rest of them seem to go pretty smooth. Let's see here, come on. He starts to, and he acts up. Come on. I swear, hamster. I'm going to grease that wheel with some bacon grease if you don't get with the program here. Never seen the beat. Here we go. USS Carl Vinson is currently part of military exercises. Again, for crying out loud. Hamster, I'm losing my patience. I'm going to yank you out of that wheel and smack you around. Come on. I think Fred the Cockatiel could do a better job here than this hamster. Come on. Okay, USS Carl Vinson is currently part of military exercises with the Japanese Navy. North Korea's state... Lord, I cannot make this up. There we go. North Korea's state newspaper issued the threat against the U.S. this weekend. Claimed the country had the ability to sink a carrier. Tensions between the two countries have been steadily rising over recent weeks. North Korea has threatened to sink an American aircraft carrier heading towards the peninsula as part of a joint military exercise with Japanese naval ships in the Philippine Sea. Vinson was the target of North Korea's hypothetical attack, CNN reports. Media in the country boasting about its military might and capabilities. The Rodong Sinmun newspaper published an editorial warning Kim Jong-un is ready to use its military force, that it is able to sink a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier with a single strike. Picture here with the caption says North Korea has threatened to sink the USS Carl Vinson, pictured, which is currently part of a joint military exercise with Japan's naval ships in sea. And then they got a map here showing where North Korea, South Korea, Japan, and China and the Philippines are, and about the location of the Carl Vinson. So if you want to see that, you can pull that map up there. Says the outlet went on to claim North Korea's military has the ability to reach continental U.S. and Asia-Pacific region, and that the country is in possession of a hydrogen bomb described as the absolute weapon. As a pair of Japanese destroyers joined the Vinson and two other U.S. warships as they continued their journey north in the western Pacific Ocean. Statement. The USS vessel had canceled a scheduled visit to divert north toward North Korea, and show of force still, though it still conducted a curtailed training exercise with Australia before doing so. Tensions are elevated on the Korean Peninsula, with the Trump administration saying that all options are on the table, and indications Kim Jong-un may be preparing to test a nuclear weapon or long-range missile. Some video here of Trump addressing the menace of North Korea during a press conference, if you want to that. They've got another picture of the USS Carl Vinson, a little more close on it, showing the aircraft carrier there, and then they've got a picture of says the undated picture released by North Korea's Korean Central News Agency on March the 7th of 2017 shows the launch of 4 ballistic missiles by the Korean People's Army. Video shows the launch of those missiles. It says the try that again. The 2 Japanese maritime self-defense force left Sasebo port in southern Japan on Friday to join the Vinson strike group. This group also includes a guided missile cruiser and a guided missile destroyer. The Navy called the exercise routine and said it is designed to improve combined maritime response and as well as joint maneuvering proficiency. The Vinson group has conducted 3 previous bilateral exercises with Japanese Navy since leaving San Diego on January the 5th for Western Pacific deployment. Picture little Kimmy. And then they got a picture of a trailer. It says foreign ministry spokesman accused mounting tensions in the region on Trump administration and said they would start nuclear war if they are attacked, pictured as a submarine-launched ballistic missile displayed during the Day of the Sun military parade. And the article goes on, it says the most recent one was in March. The new tests come just after North Korea threatened nuclear war against the United States if it is attacked. The DPRK will react to a total war with all-out war, a nuclear war with nuclear strikes of its own, and victory in the death-defying struggle against the U.S. imperialists, a foreign ministry spokesman wrote on Saturday. And then there's another picture of this missile that they displayed on the Day of the Sun. Then there is some video. North Korea reveals unidentified rocket in the Day of the Sun parade. Says the message, which was one of 3 delivered Saturday, echoed a message delivered by the top official at the massive military parade in Pyongyang earlier this month. The spokesman accused the United States and the Trump administration of tensions in recent months, saying officials have been spouting a load of rubbish and are seeking to bring nuclear aircraft carrier strike groups one after another to the waters of the Korean Peninsula, CBS News reports. North Korea appears to have resumed work at its nuclear test site in Pyongyang, I guess it's pronounced, the northern or northeastern part of the country, reports. Then the next article is off of Conservative Tribune. And hopefully the hamster doesn't have as much trouble with this one as he did the last one. Kim will kill photographer after spec forces pic captures humiliating details, it says. I'll get it up here where we can read the article. It says, while the world watched North Korea celebrate the birthday of the founder of the rogue communist regime, many media outlets took notice of the unveiling of what are believed to be new medium to long-range missiles. But something else was also unveiled that gained far less notice. The Yonhap news agency reported on the appearance of a new special operations unit during the military parade, likely intended as a display of strength meant to dissuade President Donald Trump from taking any sort of military action against the nuclear ambitious commies. Once Supreme Commander Kim Jong-un issues an order, they will charge with resolve to thrust a sword through the enemy's heart like lightning over Mount Pektu, proclaimed the proud parade broadcaster announcer while referencing the Korean Peninsula's tallest peak. But while the few media outlets that took note of the unveiling, like the UK Daily Mail, keyed in on, at first glance, fearsome appearance of the Special Operations Unit, Conservative Tribune's own in-house military experts, one of whom is a former special operator, noticed a few rather humiliating details that the Supreme Short Round probably won't be too happy about. For starters, much of the equipment the highly trained soldiers was toting was outdated design left over from the Soviet era, such as the dual-lens night vision goggles that destroy depth perception, or the North Korean-produced AK-74 knockoff rifles that have terrible ballistics and are inferior to just about anything U.S. troops are using. Imagine that. On top of that, or should I say mounted underneath the rifles, tied on with paracord no less, are special tubular magazines produced by the North Koreans known as helical magazines, according to the Aris Armament Research Service, which have been misidentified by many outlets as grenade launchers. The high-capacity magazines, originally produced solely for Kim's personal contingent of bodyguards are all but worthless in real fights, as they are extremely difficult to reload, particularly under the stress of combat, and are notorious for jamming repeatedly. And they got a picture of them in this if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. The next humiliating detail is the fact that the special operator soldiers appear to be equipped with chest-mounted holstered sidearms that appear to be more than 40 years old. Most likely CZ-75 semi-automatic pistols produced in then Soviet-dominated Czechoslovakia. Those holstered pistols were attached to tactical vests and a copycat variation of U.S. Army green light digital style camouflage, which don't match the woodland camo style uniforms the troops were wearing, which also didn't match the apparently hastily sprayed painted helmets or the hilariously misapplied Party City style black and green face paint worn by the soldiers. Add in some cheap knockoff Ray-Ban type sunglasses, which will keep a little more than sun out of their eyes and will utterly fail under the slightest ballistic test to complete the would-be special operator look, and voila! North Korea can proudly claim it's ready to oppose a decapitating strike against their leadership by real special operators of the U.S. military, which has been steadily training for such an opportunity and is truly equipped for such a task. All told, for roughly $1,600, pretty much anybody can acquire the virtually all of the same or similar equipment worn by these goose-stepping North Korean troops. In fact, it is a fairly safe bet that plenty of fat, lazy, out-of-shape American mall ninjas better equipped to actually engage in battle than those who were on display in the North Korean military parade. As a final note, it was also pointed out that these high-stepping soldiers were all at times pointing their rifles at the heads of the men standing next to them. Although, given the aforementioned accuracy and jamming problems with the rifles and magazines, that probably wasn't a big safety issue as it might be for others. Kim Jong-un most likely was looking to intimidate President Trump into leaving him alone to continue developing nuclear missiles. But he instead, hamster, has only served to humiliate himself, his military, and his isolated nation by parading around purported special operations unit that could have been mostly outfitted online by eBay, Amazon, and catalog. The next article is off of Conservative Tribune. It says Chinese army undergoing huge reform. So we go from the ridiculous to the sublime here. Pull this one up where we can read it. It says a massive reorganization by the Chinese military has many wondering if President Xi Jinping has wider designs in the Asia-Pacific sphere. According to Rutgers, state media announced Tuesday that President Xi had ordered a restructure of the People's Liberation Army to transform it into a leaner fighting force with improved joint operations capability. That news, combined with previous Chinese commitments to strengthen its armed forces for potential amphibious invasions, is making a lot of China's neighbors nervous. Such preparations for operations abroad when it comes to totalitarian powers, particularly when you in places like Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. This has profound and significant meaning in building a world-class military, Xi said during a speech to the commanders of the 84 new units of the Chinese military. Hitler was building a world-class military in the 1930s too. China's state-run Xinhua news agency said President Xi called the reshuffle important in building strong armed forces through reform, and that it would also have a profound influence on the meeting meeting the targets of enhancing the military in a new situation and building world-class armed forces. The new People's Liberation Army will have greater emphasis on electric warfare, including through cyberspace, Rutgers reported. While this move is on its own might not necessarily be cause for warning, one ought to consider the context of this. China has been busy constructing militarized islands in the South China Sea for the purpose of expanding its maritime territory. There have also been recent designs on Taiwan indicating a new focus in Beijing on reclaiming what it considers to be its historic territories. There's also been an increasing from Beijing, not in the least involving North Korea, where China demanded the U.S. state stop military drills with South Korea. To be fair, the Trump administration has pushed back with some success, but that doesn't erase the problematic nature of the first request. While one hesitates to compare any government's military policy to Germany of the 1930s and the disastrous results that follow, there are several disturbing parallels between China and the totalitarian powers that had come before them. This military consolidation means the Trump administration will have to look at China that much more closely. The next article we have is off of libertyheadlines.com. And it says, gun-waving angry Muslim arrested for terroristic threats. Originally came off of WND. After a week of growing controversy and public pressure, authorities in South Dakota on Friday arrested a Muslim man who live-streamed a Facebook video in which he made threats against Christians while showing off an arsenal of weapons. It was a complete turnaround from earlier statements by police and prosecutors who maintained that the Muslim man was just exercising his First and Second Amendment rights and had broken no laws. Threats by Ahab Jabbar were made April the 9th during the World View Weekend Rally in Sioux Falls, and Jabbar followed up with more threatening posts on his Facebook page, including one on April the 19th, where he challenged his fellow Americans who oppose him to a shootout. Leaders of the Christian Worldview Rally, who felt directly targeted by the threatening video, are now calling for resignation of the Sioux Falls police chief and the local prosecutor who sat on the case for nearly 2 weeks before making an arrest. Age 45, a former resident of Saudi Arabia, entered the Worldview Weekend Rally Conference, a private event attended by about 500 Christians at the Hilton Garden Inn in Sioux Falls on Palm Sunday, April the 9th. The event, reported ahead of time by the local newspaper as controversial and anti-Islam, drew several dozen protesters who stood out at the hotel with signs condemning the speakers at the conference as intolerant and Islamophobic. An imam wearing a long white robe came out to thank the protesters. We're so happy and so grateful to see our community come together and stand up for one message. There is no fear among us. There are no haters among us, he said in a speech captured on a local video. The robed imam said he would be out protesting if hate was being expressed for any faith, including Christians. Yet he was nowhere to be found when 1 week after the event, Jabbar's threatening anti-Christian Facebook rants were exposed in the national media. The goal of the Sioux Falls conference was to present historical and current facts, according to the speakers, who told WND their presentation was about Islamic subjugation and persecution of Christians and other religious minorities in countries where Muslims make up the majority. Featured speakers were former Muslim turned Christian pastor Shahram Hadain, a native of Iran, and a talk radio host Brandon Howes. They say their message has nothing to do with hatred for Muslims, but is a warning about Islamic law under which modern Muslims are the first to suffer. The more solidly Islamic to work here. I need glasses bad. The more solidly Islamic a country is, the less tolerance can be found for dissident opinions or religious diversity, they said. Take Jabbar's former home, Saudi Arabia, as an example. There's not a single church allowed in the country, and the penalty for possessing Bible is It is not much better in Iran, Pakistan, Somalia, Libya, or Afghanistan. Even in the um, even in the historically more moderate Muslim countries of Turkey, Egypt, and Indonesia, Christians are coming under increasing persecution as attacks on churches, pastors, and others accused of blasphemy increase. Howes told WND he found it ironic that the protesters outside the Christian Worldview Conference in Sioux Falls were talking about tolerance while they were completely intolerant of the Christians inside. They were more tolerant of a man with 5 guns and 1,200 rounds of ammo threatening the Christians. Jabbar snuck into the private event and began live streaming video of his Quran, then filmed shots of the audience, at which time he was asked by a security guard if he was armed. He had at least one handgun on his person while inside the event and wore a t-shirt that said, "I open carry, I conceal carry, I'm an American, I'm a Muslim, if you're stupid." The security guard ushered him out of the hotel ballroom, and Jabbar made a second video from his car parked in the hotel parking lot, brandishing 3 handguns and 2 assault rifles, along with hundreds of rounds of ammunition. He showed each gun and magazine while unleashing a profanity-laced diatribe that included the comments, "Be scared, be terrified." Yet no arrests were made, and the police lieutenant Mike Colwell with Sioux Falls Police Department told WND on Monday, April the 17th, that police had investigated and found no reason to make an arrest, that Jabbar had not uttered any specific threats against any individual or group. The local prosecutor for Lincoln County, Tom Woolman, told WND on April the 17th that Jabbar had First Amendment rights and Second Amendment rights and had to be considered, and that police on the scene would have made an arrest if they thought Jabbar had stepped outside the boundaries of those rights. But that all changed on Friday evening, 4 days after the article by WND and 2 days after more articles appeared in the UK's Daily Mail and the New York Post, which labeled Jabbar as an angry Muslim. Police raided Jabbar's house Friday and arrested him on one count of making terroristic threats. While the SWAT team was inside Jabbar's home, they also found an undisclosed amount of alleged methamphetamine, and Jabbar will face separate drug charges related to that discovery. House told WND he contacted local law enforcement 2 days after the April 9th event to file a criminal complaint, but not to bother, that the local prosecutor had viewed the videos and determined Jabbar had broken no laws. Howes on Saturday posted his website a full response to the charges that ultimately were filed 12 days after the event. "I was shocked this Muslim man was not arrested the very night he made what we believe fit the legal definition of a terroristic threat. After no arrest came on the 3rd day, I told Sharam that I was convinced the authorities simply wanted this to go away. I told Sharam I believed the authorities were waiting to see if I was going to bring national attention to the story through my broadcast, and that it would all just be forgotten." Despite the news reports on the incident, South Dakota Attorney General Marty Jackley denied to the local newspaper that the public had anything to do with the sudden change of heart on the part of law enforcement community, which had been defending Jabbar's rights earlier in the week. "If anything, the public pressure can create more challenges for an investigation," Jackley, the Argus leader. "It doesn't play any role in our investigation or our decisions." House is not buying that argument, which he dismissed as political posturing by the Attorney General, who is running for governor of South Dakota. What if we had not turned this into a national story? Do you think we would have seen this outcome? What if we did not have an attorney and a state representative like Steve Hargard helping us? What if this had happened to a small conservative or Christian group that did not have a national radio program and lots of friends in the conservative media? If convicted on the felony charge, Jabbar could face up to 5 years in state penitentiary and or a fine of $10,000. The possession of methamphetamine case is being prosecuted by the County State Attorney. Now, my question is this. He made the video. It was a threatening video. Saying, yeah, or be scared. It says, be scared, be very scared, be terrified. And yet, that's not a threat. And we have patriots sitting in jail in Oregon and in Nevada that didn't do that. And yet they are considered a threat and on trial and not even able to defend themselves, being allowed any bail. They've been in jail over 400 days. They have not been given speedy trials. Railroaded by the U.S. government, but yet this clown gets to walk away until they finally investigate him enough to find out that he's on meth. Wow. How does this kind of double standard go on in this country? That I have for you. Let's see, this is off Digifiction, or Dizzyfection, I guess it is, Digifection. It says, sickening. A busted child sex trafficking site leads straight to Democrats. And this one is in little tiny type. So let's zoom it up a little bit for my poor old eyes. And it's working on it here. You young folks that's got good eyesight, you need to treasure that, because one of these days you'll be in my position. I wish you could see again. All right, that's much better, much better. Okay, executives from the Backpage.com are facing serious charges for offering sex trafficking, including child trafficking. All of the executives are top sponsors of the Democratic Party of Colorado. Backpage.com is the retailer of assorted ads that appeared in the back of newspapers to advertise adult services. The site try this again. The site's admins are currently being tried in front of a grand jury in Arizona. They are facing the charges of knowingly accepting advertising or advertisements offering sex. The lawyer for two of the founders of the site acknowledged the guilt of his clients' court filings that stated that indictments may issue any time. The court heard how websites develop software to edit ads. They removed keywords related to prostitution and child trafficking to clean up the ads before publication. Backpage.com accepted ads from child sex traffickers and edited the ads for them, removing terms such as barely legal, cheerleader, and Lolita. These are all terms that indicate prostitution in the sex tourism community. It's worth to mention that 4 of the executives of the sex trafficking websites and their wives all donated a juicy amount of $90,000 to the Colorado State, or try this again, to the Colorado Senate Victory Fund. This means that the Colorado Democrats received money from their largest sponsors who obtained the funds by offering a platform for child and sex trafficking. This sordid deal has caused Colorado's conservatives to demand the party donate the funds to a nonpartisan charity to fight child trafficking. Sadly, local liberal newspapers are defending the Backpage.com executives, claiming they are not directly responsible for what third parties publish on their website. No troubles about a website which edits ads, child perverts pass undetected through the radar of law enforcement. But the Colorado Democrats deserve to be investigated. The fact that Democrats are comfortably receiving money from child prostitution is quite disturbing, and it's a clear reflection of the true colors of that party. The next article that I have for you is off of Liberty Headlines. It says, record 8,640 retail stores are closing in 2017. This originally came from Zero Hedge. It says thousands of new doors open and rents soared. This created a bubble, unlike housing, now burst. And then that quote is from Richard Hain, Urban Outfitters CEO, March 2017. The devastation in the U.S. retail sector is accelerating in 2017, and in addition to the surging number of brick-and-mortar retail bankruptcies, it is perhaps nowhere more obvious than in the soaring number of store closures. While the shuttering of retail stores has been a frequent topic on this website, in the context of the next big short, namely the ongoing deterioration of namely the ongoing deterioration in the mall REITs and associated commercial mortgage-backed securities and CDs. Here's a stunning fact from the Credit Suisse. Barely a quarter into 2017, year-to-date retail store closings have already surpassed those of 2008. The Swiss bank's calculations on a unit basis, approximately 2,880 stores closing were announced year-to-date, more than twice as many closings as the 1,153 announced during the same period last year. Historically, roughly 60% of the store closure announcements occur in the first 5 months of the year. By extrapolating the year-to-date announcements, CS estimates that there could be more than 8,640 store closings this year, which will be higher than the historical 2008 peak of approximately 6,200 store closings, which suggest that for brick and mortar stores, the current transition period is far worse than the depth of the credit crisis depression. And they have a chart here. It says Figure 1, retail store closings by unit, only second to 2015 store closures year to date, could be the new highest closing for full year. And wow, I mean, it's really soared up there. I mean, in 2008 it was 6,163, and projected for 2017 it's at 8,640. That's over 2,000. That's another 2,300 stores. Says as the WSJ calculates, at least 10 retailers, including limited stores, electronic chain H.H. Greg's, and sporting goods chain Gander Mountain, have filed for bankruptcy protection so far this year. That compares with 9 retailers that declared bankruptcy, with at least $50 million in liabilities for all of 2016. On Friday, women's apparel chain BB Store said it would close its remaining 170 shops and sell only online, while teen retailers Rue 21 Incorporated announced plans to close about 400 of its 1,100 locations. We just got news here in my town that Marsh is closing, Marsh Supermarket, next month. And in another town not too far away from here, another Marsh store is closing. So apparently a bunch of the Marsh stores are going out of business. And I think that this is probably tip of the iceberg. We're probably going to see a whole lot more go out before the end of the year. Here is off of Liberty Headlines. And it says more top executives fired at financially troubled Target Corp. This originally came from Breitbart. And it says, over the last few months, retail giant Target Corp has been desperately cutting costs and canceling long-planned growth programs to regain profitability as part of its scrambling to finally get into the black. The chain has also been firing top executives, and last week, yet another top officer scalp was taken. On Thursday, Target announced that Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer Casey Carl was leaving the company after 20 years on the job. Casey is at least the fifth top executive to leave the company recently, according to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Despite firing its top innovation officer, Target CEO Brian Cornell released a statement insisting that innovation is alive and well at Target. Might not be a complete shock considering that it is stock price and profits tumbled. Early this year, the company abruptly canceled two once highly touted innovation and growth projects aimed at bringing Target into the future of retail. Despite these moves, Cornell still claims that innovation must be a mindset, an essential component of every business, every strategy, and every team. A growth list of top officers shown the door at the nationwide retailer. All fired in the last 2 years has been Target's head of stores, head of marketing, its human resources boss, and its chief digital officer. The scrambling comes after Target suffered 3 disastrous quarters of sales declines in a row and a loss of over $15 billion this year. The losses came after its April of 2016 announcement that it intended to allow men pretending to be women to use any bathroom or changing room they want to use at any given time. Sparked millions of people to boycott the company. In one particular case, a hashtag boycott Target petition organized by the American Family Association has surpassed 1.5 million signatures. The next one you have is off of the Common Sense Show. Is Google seeking to control entire internet and execute a news blackout? Use the phrase, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. If you're unfamiliar with the phrase, it simply means that one should not enact revenge on a third party if it is going to harm oneself, and this seems to be exactly what all forms of major social media, plus Google, are presently doing. And we need to blow this up a little bigger here. It says, as a caveat, please allow me to mention that articles on media don't do well. However, this one article you are going to read. If Google is permitted to continue on their path of extreme censorship, everything you will soon see, hear, and read will be controlled. And when the New World Order is fully rolled out, you will have no clue that you have just entered Satan's realm, and you will lose total control. One of the most evil corporate entities on the face of the earth, this monolithic corporation harming their own mainstream media, MSM outlets, so they can also drive the independent media out of business. Presently, most alt media, the independent media, are bleeding money. Most sites are not coming close to a financial break-even point because of extreme media censorship of their ideas and written expressions. For example, at YouTube, owned by Google, is demonetizing any discussions of war, civil war, natural disasters, economic issues, mention any controversial, sensitive events, etc. In other words, the alt media cannot write about the news. Fox and CNN social media outlets have largely been left untouched. However, I have discovered that this is changing as well. Development a little later in this article. In this scenario, the intent is clear. The loony liberal left intends to eradicate all conservative coverage of the news, no matter what the cost. Why are they doing this? The simple and most accurate answer is that they want to control everything that you see, hear, and read. They need to enslave your mind so you will accept the unfolding of the Luciferian New World Order on and Google's place in it. This is one of the main reasons that my copyrighted byline says freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. These words were intentionally chosen, and this article captures the importance of a people to remain intellectually free so they can be physically free. Trump's campaign unleashed the floodwaters of free thinking. The Donald Trump populist movement is the most dangerous aspect of the current political climate, and it is a direct obstacle to the full rollout of the New World Order. Also, in the short term, these interlocked corporate entities are protecting their own turf through their practice of extreme censorship. 4 months ago, on a typical day, more people were exposed to my work on a daily basis than to Wolf Blitzer, by a factor of 3. This was also true of many of the Fox News shows as well. In short, the independent media was destroying the MSM. Be a victory for the globalists, and their return, the kings of media, appears to be backfiring on their own MSM outlets. The Chicago Tribune sounds the MSM bell of destruction. Nowadays, articles and tweets are beginning to appear from mainstream media outlets that look a lot like the following. It says, from Zero Hedge, we highlighted an article written by the Chicago Tribune's deputy editor for digital news, Kirk Gessler, which provided a fairly compelling set of facts to suggest that Facebook's fake news filter was suppressing the distribution of articles from media sources which undoubtedly considered themselves legitimate news outlets. Editor's note says, it is important to note that many people drive traffic to their news sites by first posting on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The authors include links to their websites, and thus their websites receive more traffic, or at least they did. Now we see that controlling social media is an effective choke point. Additionally, YouTube is driving traffic away from its own site, reportedly at the behest of its owner, Google. The dominoes of censorship are spreading like wildfire as Google has flirted with deleting websites it doesn't like. As an example, Mike Adams and his natural news website was delisted in Google's search engine. It is somewhat comforting, and it might surprise people to know that the independent media are not the only ones who are experiencing a dramatic decline in traffic and resulting revenue. For example, on YouTube, the gamers are having issues as well, and it is just as serious as it is for the independent media. In fact, on YouTube that is happy with what's going on with YouTube. As I reach out to other business entities, I'm finding that Google AdSense ads are dramatically down in revenue, sometimes as much as 400 to 500% from just 4 months ago. In other words, the attacks have reached a fever peak and are crossing into every aspect of web revenue. It is clear that Google fully plans to eradicate the alt media by the end of the year. But wait, there is more evidence that the mainstream media is getting caught up in the web of revenue-stealing censorship. Take a look at the following Twitter exchange between MSM Media and directors. If we did not know who they represented, we would conclude that they were alt media outlets under attack from Google. These original press releases from the mainstream media triggered other mainstream media outlets to come forward and proclaim the same exact malady. A dramatic decline in online traffic for mainstream media outlets. Digiday provided a compilation of tweets along this theme. Kurt Gessler puts out a tweet, says, the Trib is seeking some subtle but significant changes in our Facebook post reach. Anyone else seeing this? Again, Gessler is the deputy editor for digital news at the Chicago Tribune. Somebody tweets back and says, this looks somewhat familiar to me as well. It's not just you. Another one puts out a tweet, says, good data crunching by Kurt Gessler. Another one puts out a tweet that says, this is great, Kurt Gessler. I haven't crunched the numbers yet, but our Facebook reach is definitely down, and we do have FBI enabled. These communications focus primarily on Facebook fake news filters. However, I have learned that the filters are universal and are impacting MSM outlets about the same as they are the alt media. The MSM is just learning the reason about why and how new protocols at Google are hurting them. I have concluded that MSM outlets are likely about a week behind the curve in fully understanding what anyone in the alt media already knows, and that is because anyone in independent media is used to watching these trends, because like Mike Adams, most of us are at one time or another victims of this media censorship. Here's a situation that extends beyond Facebook, and it is interesting to note that if we took away the mainstream media news outlet identifications, you would swear that we are discussing the alt. Take this quote from the Boston Globe. It says, Matt Carolian, Director of Audience Engagement at the Boston Globe, last month was probably the worst we've ever had in reach in about a year. Consider this as an alternative headline where I substitute the Common Sense Show for the Boston Globe. Dave Hodges, the owner of the website The Common Sense Show, last month was probably the worst we've had reach in about a year. I did not know that I had so much in common with the Boston Globe, but what this reality represents is the fact that Google is willing to cut its nose off to spite its face. Why is the mainstream media under attack? Why are these new filters being used by Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Google, search engines, etc., employing screening algorithms that are so devastating to their own liberal brothers in arms? These new algos remind me of chemotherapy. Yes, the chemo does its job and sometimes kills the cancer, yet the chemo also kills the good cells, and death can and does occur from chemo applications. The same exact thing is happening here. The new social media and search engine logos are killing news aggregate sites in both the traditional mainstream and alternate news sites. This is so illogical, or is it? A search for answers. As I have discussed this with many on both sides in the media, here is what I have concluded. There are two theories that jump to the forefront which seek to explain what's happening. Number one, Google is willing to destroy some of its mainstream media partners in order to eradicate the message of freedom coming from the independent media. This is simply what I originally thought as I began to uncover what was going on with censorship against the alt-right. However, as a result of the two decisions I have had, or discussions I have had with two people in the mainstream media, I have to consider a second alternative. Number two presents a new philosophy that is directly trying to sanitize the news in general. They want certain stories gone, such as child sex trafficking and war. They don't care who gets hurt in the mainstream media. What's the benefit? Simple. If you were a director of the New World Order, wouldn't you want the masses flying blind into the event horizon of the soon-to-be reality? As it was pointed out to me, there was another consideration. Soon the mainstream media people, editors and reporters, will likely come to realize just how bad things will get, and they may forsake their allegiances to the current set of editorial controls that presently exist. Why? Because they have children that will have to grow up in this hellhole. And then there's an update. It says Mike Adams is reporting that the New York Times is calling for the removal of Google's monopolization of the internet. The MSM snakes are turning on each other. Below is an encapsulation of these events, and it posts the question, why do you think that Google is cutting its nose off to spite its face? After watching the short video, please leave your comments as to what you think Google is up to. And then they have this video that you can watch. And you can pull up this article, to watch that, and you can leave your comments at the bottom of it. There's a few comments down here. Let's see. Well, it doesn't show me the comments, but there is a section where you can leave your comments on the site there for them. The next article that we have is off of Front Page Mag. CIA's Brennan conspired with foreign spies. And here's another one that's in tiny print. Either that or my eyes are getting worse than they've ever been. I don't know what's going on here. For some reason today, there's to want to be little teeny tiny print. And get my keys functioning properly here. There we go. There, that's better. Okay. It says, although Russians may have aspired to influence the November election, the real election meddlers were Democrats in the Obama administration who conspired with foreign intelligence agencies against Donald Trump's campaign, news media reports suggest. The key player, we are learning, is the already infamous John O. Brennan, but FBI Director James Comey also played a role. From January 2009 to March of 2013, Brennan was Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism, and then Director of the Central Intelligence Agency from March of 2013 until Obama's last day as president. George Neumayer explains at the American Sector how pro-Islam, pro-communist Brennan appears to have masterminded the operation. Seeking to retain his position as CIA director under Hillary, Brennan teamed up with British spies and Estonian spies to cripple Trump's candidacy. He used their phony intelligence as a pretext for a multi-agency investigation into Trump, which led the FBI to probe a computer server connected to Trump Tower and gave cover to then National Security Advisor Susan Rice, among other Hillary supporters, to spy on Trump and his people. Drawing from a news article, The Guardian UK Neumayer adds, Brennan got his anti-Trump tips primarily from the British spies, but also Estonian spies and others. The story confirms that the seed of the espionage into Trump was planted by Estonia. The BBC's Paul Wood reported last year that the intelligence agency of an unnamed Baltic state had tipped Brennan off in April of 2016 to a conversation purporting to show that the Kremlin was funneling cash into the Trump campaign. Estonians were indeed tense after Trump's seemingly ambivalence about NATO on the campaign trail and the prospect that he might leave that former Soviet province. I'm tripping over my tongue. He might leave that former Soviet province at the mercy of Russian President Vladimir Putin. British spy agencies, too, were rife with Trump haters. The Guardian reports that Robert Hannigan, then head of the British Foreign Surveillance Service, Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ, passed material to Brennan in the summer of 2016. The claims about GCHQ, yeah, I'll get it out, involvement surfaced a month ago. On March the 16th, Fox News contributor Andrew Napolitano accused GCHQ of working with the Obama administration to spy on Donald Trump, citing unnamed sources. The United States and the United Kingdom are, in fact, parties to a multilateral intelligence cooperation pact. This five-way intelligence alliance among the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada is called Five Eyes, or FVEY. It obligates the countries to work together in the area of signals intelligence, or SIGINT. It is the gathering of intelligence related to communications between individuals, called COMINT, or COMINT, and or from electronic signals not directly used in communication, called ELINT, or ELINT. When Brennan took over the CIA, he brought along fellow travelers, a raft of subversives, and gave them plum positions from which to gather and leak political espionage on Trump, Neumayer writes. He also bastardized standards so that these left-wing activists could burrow in and take career positions. Under the patina of that phony professionalism, they could then present their politicized judgments as nonpartisan. An official in the intelligence community told Neumayer that Brennan's retinue of political radicals didn't even bother to hide their activism, decorating offices with Hillary for President cups and other campaign paraphernalia. Neumayer cuts through the obsequious flattery the Guardian article bestows on its intelligence community sources, writing that things were so bad that Brennan's CIA operated like a branch office of the Hillary campaign, leaking out mentions of this bogus investigation to the press in the hopes of inflicting maximum political damage on Trump. To ensure that these flaky tips leaked out, Neumayer writes of the dubious pro-Trump plot by the Kremlin. Brennan disseminated them on Capitol Hill. In August and September of 2016, he gave briefings to the Gang of Eight about them, which then turned up on the front page of the New York Times. This was part of Brennan's audition for the Hillary White House. Eager to retain his CIA post, the perennial excuse maker for the Muslim Brotherhood also hated Trump for his alleged Muslim ban, which offended Brennan's raging case of Islamophobia. In college, Brennan spent a year in Cairo studying Arabic and taking Middle Eastern study courses. He later was awarded a graduate degree in Middle Eastern studies. Brennan and crew also helped to torpedo Mike Flynn, President Trump's first short-lived national security advisor, because he planned to rip up the Obama-era reset with Muslim countries. After reading the transcripts of Flynn's calls with the Russian ambassador, they caught him in a lie to Vice President Mike Pence and made sure the press knew about it. Not surprisingly, Brennan is one of the key reasons the Obama administration did so little to combat jihadists domestically. After Muslim lobbies supposedly put pressure on him in 2011, Brennan purged all mentions of Islam and jihad from law enforcement counter-terror training materials. He assured those groups that the Obama administration, worse than useless countering violent extremism program, had been ideologically purified and pretended the minuscule white supremacist movement was just as big a threat as head-cutting Muslim savages. Throughout his service in the Obama administration, Brennan regurgitated the regime's dangerously idiotic Islam. It's not like he needed convincing. Brennan has spoken of the goodness and the beauty of Islam, which he calls a faith, peace, and tolerance. The the tremendous warmth of Islamic cultures and societies, he said, typically make visitors from non-Muslim lands feel very welcomed. CIA's station chief, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I saw how our Saudi partners fulfilled their duty as custodians of the two holy mosques of Mecca and Medina, he said. I marveled at the majesty of the Hajj and the devotion of the the devotion of those who filled their duty as Muslims by making that privilege. Former Marine John Guinaldo, who worked in the FBI's counterterrorism division, identified Brennan as an enemy operative who converted to Islam. Brennan admitted he supported the Kremlin-funded Communist Party USA at the height of the Cold War, even voting for CPUSA presidential candidate Gus Hall in 1976. That fact alone should have instantly and permanently disqualified Brennan from all national security-related government posts. Comey's hands are also not clean. CNN reports that FBI relied on the discredited Pissgate dossier to win approval from a secret court for permission to monitor the communications of Carter Page, a member of the Trump campaign. That Comey would act based on a dossier that is so ridiculous on its face that, among other things, it accused Trump of paying prostitutes to urinate on a hotel room bed in Moscow, suggests a strong desire on Comey's part to hurt the Trump campaign. Meanwhile, the never-Trumpers in the intelligence community can't stop lying. Now they fed more seeming nonsense to the media in order to keep the fake, faltering Trump is a puppet of Putin story alive. At American sources, Rutgers is reporting that an official Russian think tank, the Moscow-based Russian Institute for Strategic Studies, drew up plans to swing the 2016 U.S. presidential election to Donald Trump and undermine voters' faith in the American electoral system. Three current and four former U.S. officials reportedly described two confidential documents from the think tank as provided the framework and rationale for what U.S. intelligence agencies have concluded was an intensive effort by Russia to interfere with the November 8 election. Of course, it is not at all clear that the U.S. intelligence agencies have concluded any such thing, because no evidence apart from the same anonymous statements recycled endlessly on CNN have been made public. The first document was a strategy paper circulated at the highest levels of the Russian government, but was not addressed to any specific individuals. It urged the Kremlin to conduct a propaganda campaign on social media and Russian state-backed global news outlets to encourage U.S. voters to elect a president who would take a softer line toward Russia than the administration of then President Barack Obama. All 7 of these mysterious spooks reportedly said that Russia could even fantasize about having a bigger Russia lover in the Oval Office than Barack Obama. The most pro-Russian U.S. president of all time is difficult to fathom. Obama advanced Russia interests so many ways, according to Robert G. Kaufman. In 2009, he killed President Bush's missile defense program for the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland. Renegotiated the New START nuclear arms agreement, which curbed the U.S. missile defense arsenal while letting the Russians add to theirs. In March of 2012, Obama was caught on an open microphone telling then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev to wait until after the upcoming election when he would be able to make even more concessions on missile defense. As Russia engaged in what one expert called the largest military buildup since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Obama flipped off Mitt Romney during a presidential debate. After Romney on the campaign trail referred to Russia as, without question, our #1 geopolitical foe, saying the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back. And Obama did virtually nothing but talk when Putin invaded the Ukraine. Thanks to Obama's reset, Putin believes more than ever that he can achieve his consummate objective of reversing the outcome of the Cold War, Kaufman adds. No wonder Putin thought he could wage a cyber campaign to delegitimize the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. A second document from the Institute that was drawn up in October counseled that Hillary Clinton was probably going to prevail in the election. Russia to halt its pro-Trump propaganda campaign, consisting of efforts by state-backed media outlets, including international platforms, Russia Today, and Sputnik News Agency, to start producing positive reports on Trump's quest for the U.S. presidency, the official said. Given that Russia Today and Sputnik are virtually unknown among American news consumers, it is hard to imagine anything they might broadcast or publish having much of an impact on an American election. But it's becoming increasingly obvious that Russia didn't do much of anything to influence the election. John Brennan and others in the Obama administration used America's taxpayer-funded national security apparatus to engage in espionage against an opposition presidential campaign, an incoming administration, and that administration's transition team. The whole campaign aimed at convincing America that President Trump was a tool of Russia, was created by Democrats for their illicit purposes. Almost every day, new evidence emerges proving that point. The next article is off BizPac Review. It says Comey sent a letter to Congress to avoid appearance of favoritism after pressure from Lynch to downplay probe. Comey was pressured by his former boss, Obama-appointed U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch, to go easy on Hillary Clinton to ensure she would win the presidential election. That's what sources told the New York Times in an explosive expose which suggested that the Obama Department of Justice repeatedly put their thumb on the scales for Clinton by downplaying the FBI's criminal investigations into her unsecured email server. During a September 2015 meeting, Lynch ordered Comey and other FBI officials to use the word matter instead of investigation when discussing Clinton's case, 3 FBI sources told the New York Times. Trump replaces, wait a minute. Yeah, that's an ad for another article. Insiders also said Lynch told Comey not to confirm to the media if the agency was investigating Hillary Clinton, even though it had already opened a criminal investigation after being alerted that Clinton had mishandled classified information. As a result of all this political browbeating, Comey distrusted Lynch and was afraid the FBI would lose credibility in the public's eyes. To avoid the appearance of favoritism and because he felt certain Clinton would win, Comey sent a letter to Congress just weeks before Election Day informing them that the FBI was reopening its investigation after new evidence surfaced. Just 3 months earlier, Comey had declared the Clinton investigation closed and was hailed a hero by liberals. After Comey sent the letter in October, Clinton and her comrades blamed him and Russia, white woman misogyny. I'll try this again. Blamed him and Russia, white women, misogyny, WikiLeaks, Bernie Sanders, etc., for her election loss. Yeah, it was anything but her. And Attorney General, or as Attorney General, it was Loretta Lynch's job to decide whether Clinton should be indicted for mishandling classified information when she used a private unsecured email server to conduct State Department business as Secretary of State. Lynch was widely slammed after the news leaked that she secretly met with Bill Clinton for more than 30 minutes on the tarmac of an Arizona airport in June of 2017. The suspicious timing of the meeting cast doubts on whether Lynch could be unbiased towards Hillary Clinton. Less than a week later, FBI Director James Comey, who reported to Lynch, announced the FBI would not recommend an indictment against Clinton. You do the math. Next article is off of Liberty Writers. It says, big win. Trump just made Democrats cringe with what he just did to Obamacare. Is a man who likes to see results. He said he was going to make Republicans repeal and replace Obamacare, and look what he just did. Today it was revealed that congressional Republicans have been working in secret to make good replacement, and it is almost finished. Trump told reporters at a press conference, "We have a good chance of getting it soon. I'd like to say next week, but I believe we will get it." And there is some video here called "Are You Shook? Trump on Repealing Obamacare." It says, so how soon are we thinking? Well, the goal is to get it by next week so Trump can have the win before his first 100 days are up. While no exact date has been given, Paul Ryan told reporters at a separate conference in London, "We're very close. This time they have everyone in on it. We're talking the classic politicians and the Tea Party and Trump congressmen. Hopefully we can finally get something passed. 2018 is coming up." Still, it's good to see that President Trump did his job and lit a fire under their asses. Let's help make them finish the job by sharing this out and letting them know Obamacare needs to be gone yesterday. The next article is off BizPac Review. It says, former New York Police Department commissioner says, I'm surprised they don't lock people like de Blasio up. You can't violate federal law. Police have a responsibility to enforce the law, whether it's state, local, or federal. That was the assessment of former New York City Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik during his Sunday morning appearance on the Fox News channel's Fox and Friends. And there is video of that if you want to pull it up and watch it. Kerik responded to New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio's decision to protect immigrants who have arrived in the U.S. illegally, turning the Big Apple into the so-called sanctuary city. He agreed with U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions' statement that sanctuary cities are soft on crime. The Attorney General has a really good point, he told Friends co-host Clayton Morris. You cannot enforce federal law. The mayor offered New York's reduction in crime as proof that the city isn't soft on crime, but Kerik countered that crime reduction has been a lengthy process going back long before de Blasio's short 2-year tenure. These crime reductions go back to former mayors Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg, me and other former police commissioners, Ray Kelly and Bill Bratton initially, he said. However, you cannot say I'm going to let illegals be in New York City and I'm not going to enforce federal law, Kerik argued. That's soft on crime, he concluded. De Blasio wrote a New York Daily News op-ed on the 22nd in which he bragged that 2016 saw the city's fewest number of serious crimes in history. He's taking a victory lap for the successes of NYPD, Kerik said, adding that instead of crime statistics, the focus should be on the mayor's policies. Because of those policies, gangs have taken over Rikers Island City Jail facility, he told Morris. There's an 18% increase in gang violence on Rikers Island and inmate-on-inmate violence. Kerik said that nothing good can come of a city's proclaiming itself as a sanctuary for illegal immigrants. You have people in these sanctuary cities who don't belong here, he argued. They're here illegally, they're committing acts of violence, and you have a mayor who says we're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to cooperate with the feds. Kerik believed that the federal government had the right to go beyond merely withholding federal funds. Personally, I'm surprised they don't lock people like this up. The mayor and people like this, you cannot violate federal law. You take an oath of office to enforce the federal law, he said. You can't say except for that law. Tensions have mounted between the mayor and the New York Police Department from the day de Blasio took office. The most recent example, New York Police Department officers have been alerting immigration and customs enforcement of upcoming trial dates of illegal immigrants. And that's all I have for you. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to let me know. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.